feeling the mouth of the cave like a tomb. My hands flew up too late. My ears rang. My lungs screamed. Last thing I heard was Ryan's voice. Calm. Smug. "These should keep you warm, Brett." Then silence. We'd been partners for 12 years. He was my brother-in-law. Married Dina, his sister, 16 years ago. We started our own exploration and minerals outfit back in 2010. Been through fires, floods, and lawsuits. We were supposed to trust each other. 3 weeks earlier, I'd hit something big. Found a lithium-rich seam high up near Needle Creek in the Rockies. Pure grade, untouched. Could have been worth billions. First person I called? Ryan. I showed him the GPS tags and mineral samples. He grinned, clapped my shoulder. "We should check it out, just like old times." Dina backed the trip. She even packed our gear. "Take him," she said. "You two need to reconnect." Her voice was tight, like she already knew something I didn't. We left on a Tuesday. Weather was clean. Hike was steep, over 2,000 feet of elevation in 2 miles, but Ryan kept pace. He didn't complain, didn't even sweat much. Said the heavier pack was just tools and backup flares. 2 days in, we found it. I'd marked the cave entrance with a red rag and a GPS ping. Inside, 30 feet in, I spotted the seam running horizontal like a buried promise. I scraped at it, clean cut, no impurities. My heart was pounding. "This is it," I said out loud. "We're gonna be rich, man." I turned to show him. Ryan stepped back, eyes wide. Then he lowered his voice. "Come here, man. Gotta show you something." He hugged me, tight, like we'd just hit the jackpot together. He smelled like old canvas and sweat. Then he said it, soft, almost brotherly. "You know I love you, right?" I blinked. Yeah?" Then he shoved me. Hard. My boots slipped on gravel. I slammed into the wall. Before I could yell, he was already running. A second later, boom. The blast wasn't huge, but it didn't need to be. It just had to bring down enough ceiling to block the mouth. Rocks thundered down, bounced, crashed into my legs. I threw myself backward into a side crevice and covered my head. Then, nothing. No more footsteps. No echo of gear. Just rock dust in my teeth and the slow trickle of debris settling. Ryan was gone. I stood there in the dark, frozen, ears ringing. My left knee throbbed. My pack had flown off during the fall, but I crawled and found it. 1 flashlight, half a bottle of water, a protein bar. He'd packed everything else, including the satellite radio. That was when it hit me. This wasn't an accident. Ryan didn't just panic. He planned this. The way he waited until I turned around. The exact timing of the blast. The fake warmth in his hug. He buried me alive. And the sickest part? Something in me already knew. Dina had kissed me goodbye like I was a guest, not her husband. No eye contact. Just a flat, "Ryan says it'll be quick." Quick note. Before listening, share in comments which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. I'd brushed it off at the time, told myself I was overthinking. But now I saw it clearly. She didn't just agree to this trip. She orchestrated it. And Ryan? He wasn't acting alone. I stood up, knee screaming, and pointed the flashlight at the rubble. My hands were already bleeding from where I'd braced the fall. Didn't matter. I picked up a rock and started digging. I clawed at the rock like a rabid animal. My fingers bled through torn gloves, skin peeling from the knuckles. The flashlight beam shook with every swing. No give. Just solid, unbroken stone. I screamed into the rubble until my throat burned, but nothing moved. Not a pebble. The dust hung in the air like a curse. Every breath came dry and shallow. I dropped to my knees, coughing, spitting, trying not to choke. 1 flashlight, 2 protein bars, half a bottle of water. That was it. No emergency radio, no flares, no backup plan. We weren't supposed to be gone long. 2, maybe 3 nights. Just enough time to log the vein and file a preliminary claim. I leaned back against the rock wall, hands shaking, blood drying in my palms. The beam of the flashlight bounced off the cave ceiling. The shadows bent in strange, crooked ways, like they were watching me. But it wasn't the dark that got to me. It was the silence. Nothing. No wind. No echo. No sound of life. Just this stillness, thick and unnatural, like the mountain itself had swallowed me whole. And in that silence, her voice crawled back into my head. Ryan says it'll be quick. That's what Dina said. Morning we left, she poured my coffee, set down the mug, didn't even sit with me. No eye contact, no hug, just those 5 words. I should have known. She'd been off for months, started last fall, always visiting her mom in Arizona, always too tired for dinner, always brushing off my updates on the lithium scans, the chemistry reports, the mineral rights prep work. She used to hang on every word I said about the lab. She stopped asking around December. I closed my eyes, ran through it all again. Thanksgiving, she left early. Christmas, barely touched her plate. New Year's, didn't kiss me at midnight. The change had been so slow I convinced myself it was stress, burnout, grief from losing her dad. But it wasn't any of that. It was distance, deliberate distance. And now it made sense. She didn't send Ryan to keep me company. She sent him to finish the job. A slow pulse started behind my ears. My breath came out fast, uneven. I wanted to throw something, smash the flashlight against the wall, scream her name until the cave cracked open. But I didn't. I bit the inside of my cheek, stood up, and forced myself to breathe. If they thought I was going to die quiet down here, they had no idea who I was. I strapped the flashlight to my chest harness, grabbed my pack, and started walking deeper into the tunnel. If the blast had blocked one way, maybe, just maybe, there was another. The path narrowed, twisted like a snake. I stayed low, careful. Dust crunched under my boots. My lungs ached, but I kept moving. 10, maybe 15 minutes in, I started seeing glimmers on the rock, reflections that didn't match my light. I froze. There was a flicker, then another. A warm gold light bouncing off the stone ahead. Someone was there. And then I saw him. A man stepped into view, holding a rusted lantern in one hand and a long, dull hunting knife in the other. He wore an old fire-retardant coat, torn at the collar, dust caked in the creases. "Easy," he said, voice low, calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." I didn't move. My legs were ready to bolt. He raised the lantern slightly. "You got caught, didn't you?" "Who the hell are you?" I asked. "Name's Vaughn," he said. "Used to be a wildlands firefighter. Been down here a while." My eyes stayed on the knife. He noticed. "This is for snakes and rats, not people. If I wanted you gone, I'd have let the mountain finish the job." I didn't argue. I was too tired to. "You got air for maybe 20 more hours," he said. "The pressure's shifting. Poison gas leaks through cracks up ahead." "How do you know that?" He tapped his chest. "Been living in this system 3 years. Know every draft, every drop." I swallowed hard. "Why are you here?" "Same reason as you," he said. "Someone wanted me gone. Long story." He reached out a hand. I stared at it. Then I grabbed it. His grip was firm, strong. "I've got a hideout. Safer spot to think. Rest." After that, we moved deeper. "Deeper?" "There's another exit," he said. "Not easy, but real." I followed him. What other choice did I have? We ducked into a low tunnel, the ceiling barely 5 feet high. The light from his lantern danced along the walls, catching veins of quartz and tiny reflective crystals. "What did you do?" I asked. He didn't look back. "Trusted the wrong person. Same as you." We followed the tunnel down until the air shifted. Warmer, thicker, like breathing through a wet rag. Vaughn ducked under a low rock shelf and waved me into a side chamber. I had to crawl the last 6 feet. Then I stood up into a hollowed-out room that looked like something out of a survivalist fever dream. Driftwood shelves lined the walls, stacked with vacuum-sealed food, coiled rope, canisters, plastic-wrapped tools. A rusted saw hung next to a hammer and some handmade hooks. The floor was packed dirt and smooth stone, not a single loose rock. In the center, a small fire pit sat ringed by charred stones and a chunk of pipe chimney carved into the ceiling. "This is base," he said. "We've got a few hours of safe air here. Then we go deeper. There's an exit, but it's not easy." I dropped my pack and collapsed against the far wall, body still trembling. My flashlight was down to 1 bar. I clicked it off and set it aside. Vaughn lit a small burner from one of the propane tanks. The warmth hit fast. I held my hands out, watching the blood dry in my cracked skin. It hurt to even flex my fingers. "You get hit hard?" he asked. "Mostly knees and hands," I said. "Nothing broken, I think." "Then you're lucky. You made it through the fall, the blast, and 2 chambers without breathing in poison. Odds weren't in your favor." "I've been running on anger," I said, exhaling. "That and spite." He grinned a little and handed me a water pouch. "Spite's a fuel, I understand." I drank slow. It tasted metallic, but clean enough. After a minute, I pulled the sample kit from my jacket and opened it. I stared down at the 4 labeled cores, each one tagged, sealed, cataloged. The lithium vein, preserved. That had been my backup plan. In case someone challenged the claim, in case I needed proof. But I never imagined I'd need them just to prove I was alive. Vaughn sat across from me, arms resting on his knees. He watched me closely. I looked up. "You want to hear it?" He nodded once. So I told him everything. How I found the vein. How I looped in Ryan. The hike, the moment he hugged me. The shove, the blast. I told him about Dina too. How she pushed me to take the trip. How her kiss goodbye had felt like a formality. The words spilled out without much control, but Vaughn didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he let a few seconds pass before saying, "What about your wife?" I hesitated. "She sent me with him. I think she knew." Vaughn reached behind him and grabbed a worn-out radio, missing its antenna. He turned it over in his hands. "Heard chatter on this a few weeks ago," he said. "Mostly noise. But one night, I picked up a couple talking. Investment talk, new claim filings, trying to fast-track paperwork. Name matched yours. They mentioned a patent number, spelled out. My stomach turned. Number that claim hasn't even cleared yet. I stopped myself. They filed without you," he said. I sat back against the wall, vision tunneling. "She's his sister. They've been close since we got married. But I never thought—" "They played you," Vaughn said, flat as stone. "Emotionally, legally, financially. You were a stepping stone." I wanted to break something. My hand clenched around the sample kit so tight the latches creaked. I almost smashed it against the ground. But I didn't. Because the rocks inside, that was my proof. My bullet. "I've got everything," I said through gritted teeth. "Original GPS logs, lab IDs, chemical breakdowns, time-stamped analysis, emails from the Institute." I met his eyes. "It's all in this kit." "Then you've still got a shot," he said. "But it only counts if you get it in front of the right people." I looked around the chamber, hand-dug, organized, lived in. This guy didn't just survive down here. He built something. "What's your story?" I asked. Vaughn leaned back. "I was part of a crew in Idaho. Wildfires got worse every year. One season we ran a line near Coeur d'Alene. Wind shifted fast. I was the only one not burned alive. Wife blamed me. Her brother spread stories. I was dropped from the department within a month. I winced. That's brutal. They buried me in paperwork and silence," he said. "So I disappeared. Down here there's no one left to lie to me." The burner flame hissed between us. For a while we didn't say anything. Then he pointed to the sample kit. "You still got your proof. That's your bullet. Now let's figure out how you fire it." I can't go to the cops, I said. Not yet. They'll think I faked the cave-in. I need more than samples. I need a timeline, witnesses, evidence. We'll build it, he said. But first we get out. There's a path. Not for the weak. I'm not weak. He looked at me like he already knew that. Then you better start getting your mind right. Because we're going where no map's marked. And once we pass the old channel, there's no turning back. I took a deep breath, then clipped the kit shut. My fingers stopped shaking. All right, I said. Let's make a plan. Vaughn stood up and kicked dirt over the burner flame. The shadows rushed back in, swallowing the walls. Rest while you can, he said. We move at first light. At dawn, Vaughn woke me with a nudge. Time's up. We packed tight, rope coiled over my shoulder, fresh batteries in both lights, 2 protein bars each, 1 flare in my jacket, 2 in Vaughn's. I tucked the sample kit back into its wrap and strapped it across my back with paracord. We moved fast. Air was already getting heavier, clinging to my chest like wet wool. Vaughn led. I followed. The first tunnel sloped down, easy footing, but 20 minutes in, it narrowed. Walls pulled in. Roof dropped low. This is the part that bites, Vaughn said. Collapse happened last spring. Old path's gone. The new route was a crawl space, half pinned by fallen rock, barely wider than a coffin. He slid in first, pushing his pack ahead of him. I dropped onto my stomach and followed, dragging mine by the straps. The stones scraped my ribs, crushed my legs at the knees. My boots jammed against jutting corners. The flashlight beam jumped wildly, sometimes flashing pure black when the walls squeezed too close. Every inch forward felt like a test. My thighs cramped. My left boot got pinned and I had to wrench it free with both hands. I gritted my teeth. My body's screaming, man. That means it's still working, Vaughn called back. Talk to me, I said. Keep me grounded. He didn't hesitate. Wife's name was Jess. Son was Tyler. They lived near Kalispell. I got the call while I was cutting lines in Nevada. House caught during a freak ember shift. Volunteer crew didn't make it in time. I kept crawling. Jesus. I was supposed to be home that weekend. I switched shifts to cover for a guy who broke his leg. His voice sounded closer now. I came down here to listen to the kind of silence that doesn't lie. Up there, people lie with everything. Their faces, their words, their intentions. But down here, either you survive or you don't. That's truth. We broke through. Vaughn pulled me up and out into a wide chamber. I rolled onto my side, chest heaving, arms shaking from the crawl. My light bounced off the walls, and for a second, I forgot how much I hurt. The place looked unreal. Stalactites dangled like frozen knives. Crystals bloomed along the rock in jagged ridges, catching the light and throwing it back at us in violent bursts. The walls shimmered with quartz and selenite veins, like nature had designed the place just to mess with our senses. Vaughn dusted himself off. The echo chamber. Watch your footing. Rocks are sharp, and the slope turns slick near the center. My jaw clenched as I took it all in. I don't care if it's made of diamonds. I hate this place. He nodded once. Hate helps, keeps you moving. We crossed the room slowly, stepping between stone spires. Every sound we made, boots crunching, breath dragging, came back twice as loud. I tried not to look too long at the reflections. They played tricks, made it feel like someone else was in the room. But the worst part wasn't the pain in my legs or the weight of the gear. It was the voice that wouldn't leave my head. Dina's voice. Flat. Emotionless. Ryan says it'll be quick. I stopped walking. Vaughn turned. You good? I stared at the ground. That's what she said to me. Morning we left, right before the trip. He waited. Didn't push. She already knew what was going to happen. I don't know if she planned it or just watched it happen, but she knew. He stepped closer. They counted on you not fighting, not thinking past the betrayal, but you're still here. I looked up at him. I'm not dying down here. I'm dragging both of them into the daylight. He reached out and squeezed my shoulder once, then pointed at the far end of the chamber. We hit the real climb now. After that, the lower pass. Then the water. Water? Underground river. Don't worry, we're not there yet. I rolled my neck, shook out the stiffness in my arms. Let's move. We pushed forward through a narrow choke point. The air was cooler on this side, but thinner. Vaughn handed me a salt tab and made me drink. You pass out here, he said. I can't carry both of us. I forced it down, not planning on it. The walls started pulsing with moisture. Our boots slipped more often. Vaughn planted flares every 100 yards, short burn, low smoke, just in case we had to double back. We passed old mining graffiti, names, initials, scratched-in dates from the 40s. One message said, "God forgot this place." Vaughn snorted when he saw it. Sounds like something my ex's brother would have written. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Just once. That's a first, he said. You laugh like someone who hasn't in a while. Feels weird, I admitted, like I'm using someone else's lungs. He handed me a protein bar. Eat, 10 minutes rest. Then we hit the rock slide tunnel. After that, we camped by the river. I sat down on a flat stone and looked back toward the echo chamber, watching the last of the flare burn out. We were deep now, beyond where light had meaning. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I was angry, focused, and getting closer. We camped by a vertical shaft Vaughn called the lung. It was narrow, no wider than my shoulders, but it pulled in cool air from some vent miles above. You couldn't see the opening, but you could feel it. Just enough breeze to fight the thick staleness choking the lower tunnels. Vaughn built a fire low and tight. Just twigs and shavings from his stash, nothing big enough to smoke us out. The glow danced along the rock, throwing long shadows that stretched and curled like fingers reaching back into the dark. I sat against the wall, silent, arms wrapped around my knees. I hadn't said much since we stopped. Every part of me ached, my back, my legs, my throat, but I couldn't feel anything clearly except the pressure in my chest. Vaughn stirred the fire. You think they're together? I didn't answer at first. My jaw tightened, then I gave a slow nod. Yeah, I think it started before this. Months ago. Maybe longer. I just didn't want to see it. He glanced over, face unreadable. It's always the people closest, he said. That's why it hurts like hell. I rubbed my face, palms gritty with dried sweat. The business was mine. The discovery was mine. But I trusted them to help me build it. Ryan for the logistics, Dina for the books. I was in the dirt doing the work. They were in the background, and I let that happen. He tossed another stick on the fire, sparks popping. That's how it goes. You dig, they wait, and when the money shows up, they act like they always owned it. We sat in silence again, the kind that stretches out without getting awkward. After a few minutes, he reached into his duffel and pulled out a notebook and pen. Let's lay out the timeline, he said. What happened, when, who knew what. Build it backward. I took a breath, forced myself to focus. Okay. First thing. Ryan had to file something after the cave-in. A missing persons report, maybe even a death certificate. He's the only witness. He writes the story. She confirms it. Right, I said. Then they file for ownership, the claim, the patent. My stake gets passed to Dina as next of kin. Unless there's a prenup. There isn't, I muttered. We were young, dumb, too broke to think we'd ever have something worth protecting. Vaughn scribbled on the pad. So if he files and she backs it, they inherit everything. Publicly, you're gone. Privately, they take over. I stared into the flames. They've probably filed already. Fast-track paperwork through my name. Then you need to prove you're not just alive, but that you owned every damn piece of this discovery. I dug into my jacket and pulled out the sample kit. My hands were still stiff, but I managed to unlatch it and lay it open on the flat rock between us. "This is what I've got," I said. "Dated logs, GPS pings, tagged samples with location notes, lab IDs from the Institute. My name's on all of it. The data's clean, and I have a backup of the spectroanalysis on my drive, assuming they didn't wipe it already." He studied the samples carefully. "That's your gun." "Yeah," I said. "Now I just need a courtroom." We went quiet again, the fire cracking low. My legs throbbed, but I didn't move. After a while, Vaughn stood and packed the burner. "We move again in 10. Water's close." "Water?" "You'll see." We doused the fire and packed light. Just the samples, food, rope, and tools. Everything else stayed behind. The next tunnel was tight but vertical. We had to wedge ourselves between walls and shimmy upward like chimney sweeps. Vaughn led with confidence, planting boots in narrow corners, pulling with raw hands. Halfway up, my foot slipped. Gravel peeled loose and my body dropped 6 inches. The jolt shot straight through my spine. "You all right?" Vaughn called down. "I got it," I grunted. I wedged my shoulder against the wall, reset my boots, and climbed. We cleared the shaft and dropped onto a narrow ledge. Water dripped from above, pooling in divots along the floor. Vaughn checked his pack, then pointed down the left passage. "That's the stream path, but it's slow and tight. We'll take the high cut first." We scrambled over loose stone, our boots kicking dust off the edge into blackness. One bad step here and we were gone. Vaughn kept pace ahead, but his breathing had changed. Shorter, heavier. The sweat on his neck glistened in the light. We reached a sharp incline of polished rock, slick and wet like marble. Vaughn climbed first. He planted his foot, grabbed a notch, and hoisted himself up. I followed, testing each step twice before moving. Near the top, I heard a slip. Vaughn's boot lost grip. His body dropped, slammed chest first into the slope. His legs started to slide. One arm flailed for the ledge. I lunged, reached down, grabbed his forearm. My boots scraped hard as I dropped to my stomach, anchoring myself against a boulder. The strain tore through my shoulder. He gasped, legs dangling, but I held on. "Don't move," I barked. I'm good," he muttered, kicking for purchase. With one hard yank, I pulled him back onto the ledge. He landed on his side, panting. We lay there, catching our breath. Finally, he looked at me and let out a breathless laugh. "Guess we're square now," he said, grinning. I cracked a smile despite the pain. "Damn right we are." He stood up slowly, tested his footing, and offered me a hand. "You ready to get wet?" he asked. "Not even a little," I said. "But let's go." The tunnel dipped into a stone throat, slick and cold, and when we reached the ledge, I heard it, the sound of water echoing up from below. Not a gentle stream. A fast, tight underground river, moving like it was in a rush to get out of hell. Vaughn squatted at the edge of the drop and lit a red flare. He tossed it in. The light spiraled as it fell, bouncing off the rock until it hissed out in the current below. "That's it," he said. "One way out." He didn't wait for ceremony, just turned to me and said, "Give me 90 seconds. Then follow. No hesitation." "You sure this works?" It worked once. That was all he gave me before he stepped off the ledge and vanished into the black. A splash, then silence. I checked the knots on the sample kit again, tight across my back. No loose straps. I adjusted my headlamp, took a breath, and counted. 1, 2, 3. My heart slammed against my ribs with every second. The sound of the water filled the space around me, rising in pitch like it wanted to swallow my thoughts. At 87 seconds, I dropped. I hit the water hard. It pulled me under instantly, dragging me forward into a tunnel that closed over my head like a coffin. I kicked and clawed, the current tossing me side to side. My headlamp flickered. I couldn't see anything, just pitch black rushing past my eyes, pressure in my ears, chest tightening. The panic tried to take over. My lungs burned. I felt the scream rise in my throat, but I didn't let it out. I kept kicking, right arm forward, left tucked tight. Vaughn's voice in my head. No hesitation. Then finally, light. A tiny glint, flickering through the murk. I aimed for it and kicked like hell. My head broke the surface with a gasp that didn't sound human. I coughed, spit out water, tried to scream and laugh at the same time. Before I could get my bearings, Vaughn's arms were under mine, dragging me to the rocky shore. "You did it," he said, voice hoarse. "Told you." I collapsed on the cold stone, coughing up what felt like a gallon of river. He patted my back twice and tossed me a dry rag from his pack. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. Not clean laughter. Raw, ugly, full of water and shock. Then I wiped my face and laughed again. "Almost cried too," I said, choking it down. "Almost." He nodded. "That's what it's supposed to feel like." We climbed out of the chamber and hit a slope that led to daylight. Real daylight. We broke through a moss-covered split in the rock and stumbled out into pine trees and crisp, cool air. The silence wasn't dead here. It was full. Wind in branches, bird calls, the faint hum of a ranger station up the hill. We looked like hell, soaked, bloody, shaking. But we were out. The ranger at the door was maybe 22, blonde ponytail, stunned expression. She reached for her radio but paused when she saw Vaughn's face. "Ma'am," he said, calm and direct, "we need a phone. Don't ask questions." She nodded and stepped aside. The station was small, cinder block and timber, one desk, 2 chairs. Vaughn went straight to the back and came out with a burner phone in a Ziploc bag. He handed it to me. "Yours now." I unsealed it with shaking hands, powered it on, and sat down. My fingers moved on instinct. First number, my lawyer in Durango. He answered after 2 rings. "Brett?" "Still breathing," I said. "Get ready to go to war." Then I ended the call and punched in the sheriff's office in Silverton. Vaughn stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the doorway like someone might come charging through it. The line picked up. A male voice. "San Juan County Sheriff's Office. This is Brett Kingsley. I need to know if anyone's filed anything under my name." Silence. Then the guy said, 1 second." I heard muffled voices. Then he came back. "Looks like your wife filed a death certificate 2 days ago. Said you were presumed dead in a cave collapse." I didn't speak. My hand stayed frozen around the phone. My eyes stared at the wall. No emotion. Just cold, sharp confirmation. "Mr. Kingsley?" the deputy asked. I hung up. Vaughn didn't ask. He already knew. I set the phone down on the desk, fingers still trembling, and leaned back in the chair. "She didn't even wait a week," I muttered. "Because it was all in motion," Vaughn said. "He files the report. She signs the death certificate. They inherit the claim, cash out the rights, and walk away rich. She didn't even call my parents." "That was never the point," he said. "The moment they buried you, the story became theirs." I clenched my jaw until it hurt. "Then I'm taking it back. You've got your samples, your timeline, and now you've got your resurrection," he said. "You're not a ghost. You're a goddamn fuse." I stood up and rolled my shoulders. I didn't feel pain anymore, just fire. "I want every signature, every false form. I want them recorded, notarized, and handed to the feds." He picked up the phone again. "Then let's get moving." Denver felt wrong the second we rolled in. Too clean, too loud. Every sound too sharp after weeks underground. My boots didn't belong on sidewalks. My lungs weren't ready for city air. But none of that mattered. We were here for one thing. Ryan. We tracked him to a luxury mountain-themed resort downtown. Faux rustic wood, glass walls, overpriced cocktails. He was pitching my discovery like it was his second name. The hotel had cleared out the conference floor for a private investment showcase. All high-end suits, designer watches, the kind of people who'd never dirtied their hands in rock or soil but would kill for $1 billion lithium claim. We were set up in a surveillance van just across the lot. A local detective, Castillo, ran point. Solid guy, tough eyes, no time for small talk. Vaughn leaned against the side wall, arms crossed, watching the monitor. On screen, Ryan stood in front of a display board filled with fake site maps and edited mineral scans. He looked slick, clean-shaven, tailored blue suit, same snake oil grin he wore at my wedding. He spoke with fake grief in his voice. Brett was a genius, a pioneer in high-elevation lithium sampling, but the mountain took him before he could see what he found. My sister's devastated. We're just trying to honor his legacy. I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles cracked. Castillo watched the feed. Guy's good at selling lies. He's always been good, I said. I just used to think it was charm. The investors nodded along, all polite sympathy. One of them leaned forward and said, "We're fast-tracking the claim. We'd like to lock this in by end of quarter." Ryan smiled. "That's great news. Brett would have wanted this in the right hands." Vaughn stepped forward. "Tell me we're going." Castillo gave the nod. "Now." My heart didn't race. It slowed. Locked in. The van doors swung open. We stepped out into the heat. The wind smelled like concrete and pine cleaner. I walked ahead while Castillo and two plainclothes officers trailed behind. We crossed the lot, pushed through the double doors, walked straight past the concierge like we owned the damn place. A young assistant tried to block the entrance to the conference tent. Castillo flashed his badge. She stepped aside fast. Inside, Ryan was still holding court. His back was to the entrance, talking about projected yields and global energy shifts. He didn't see me walk in. Not yet. I didn't say a word, just walked straight toward the center of the room. The moment he turned and saw me, he froze. His jaw unhinged slightly. Color drained from his face. He didn't move. I stopped 10 feet away. "Hello, brother," I said, loud enough for the whole room. "You forgot to bury the truth." The room went dead silent. No one moved. The investors looked confused. A few glanced at Ryan, waiting for him to speak. But he didn't. Couldn't. His mouth opened like he wanted to spin it, but nothing came out. Then the officers moved. Fast and clean. Hands behind his back, cuffs on. Ryan didn't fight. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. I stepped forward, pulled the sample kit from my bag, and placed it on the table. Clicked it open. One by one, I laid out the tagged samples, the timeline documents, the signed lab reports, the GPS logs. "These are the original records of the site," I said. "Filed before the collapse, proven chain of custody, my name, my research, my data." The suits leaned in. None of them spoke. I saw one of them pull out a tablet and start cross-checking something online. A detective stepped up beside me. "And your wife?" I didn't hesitate. "My ex-wife," I said. "Check her signature on the fake death certificate, 2 days after I went missing. No search party, no investigation, just a signature and a claim filing." One of the investors finally spoke. "We were told the death was verified by authorities." "Then you've been lied to," I said, "and your money's about to be tied to fraud." Another one of them stood, looked directly at Castillo. "Is this official?" He nodded. "Very." The room shifted like someone had flipped a breaker. Investors backed away from the pitch table. Phones came out. One of them muttered something about legal counsel. Another cursed under his breath. Ryan stayed silent. His eyes found mine one last time. I thought maybe he'd scream. Maybe he'd lunge. He didn't. He just stood there in cuffs, mouth tight, eyes burning with a mix of hatred and fear. Castillo turned to me. "Anything else?" I nodded to the last file. "He forged my signature on the release paperwork. That alone should be enough for felony fraud. But there's more. Wire transfers, patent filings, possibly conspiracy to commit murder." Castillo nodded. "We'll dig it up." As they led Ryan past me, he finally spoke, low, bitter. She loved me, you know. I didn't flinch. Then you deserve each other. He didn't say another word. As the room cleared, Vaughn walked in from the hallway. He looked around, then stepped up next to me and whispered, "Now that's daylight." I exhaled, long and sharp. It wasn't over, not yet. But it was cracking open. The first real light since the mountain tried to eat me alive. The paperwork came through 2 weeks later. A thick packet from the Institute, notarized, stamped, backed by their legal team. My discovery rights were fully restored. Ownership, intellectual property, first claim rights, and lab priority on the lithium site. Ryan's assets were frozen within 48 hours of his arrest. Joint accounts with Dina flagged. His business accounts locked. Every penny he touched was under review, and the second his lawyer opened his mouth, 3 more charges got added to the list. Dina didn't speak to the press. She didn't speak to me. Not a word, not a text, not even a lawyer's letter. She tried to play the grief card at first, went online with some vague post about tragic misunderstandings and family betrayal. But it didn't stick. The moment her name hit public record with that forged death certificate, every PR firm that used to kiss her ass started ghosting her. I didn't need revenge anymore. I just wanted the truth out. A reporter from a Denver paper called me one afternoon. Some young guy trying to make a name for himself. His voice was too smooth, like he'd practiced every question in a mirror. "Did you know she and Ryan checked into a hotel together 3 weeks before your trip?" he asked. Denver, boutique place, suite under a fake name. I looked out the window at the hills and let it settle. Then I said, "Yeah, I do now." He asked if I wanted to comment on their relationship. "No," I said. "But thanks for confirming what I already suspected." I hung up and didn't answer when he called back. Vaughn came by later that day. He pulled up in an old Tacoma, bed full of lumber and plastic crates. "What's all this?" I asked. "Phase 2, he said. "You're not going to spend the rest of your life filling out forms and dodging calls." We hauled the stuff into the edge of the Institute's forest campus, built 2 shelters by hand, canvas stretch, fire ring in the middle, hung maps, clipped topo charts, drilled rock walls for anchor lessons. By the end of the month, we had a name: Ridge School. Small survival course for geologists, engineers, and backcountry survey teams. Not fancy, no social media, just boots, rope, and truth. First lesson, Vaughn wrote on the whiteboard: "Don't trust charming men in expensive boots." "Catchy," I said. "Accurate," he replied. We ran 4-day camps: basic navigation, wilderness safety, gear repair, pitfall scenarios. Vaughn took lead on the trauma first aid modules. I taught claim protocol and rock science. The students came in cocky. Most of them left humble. The nights were the best. Quiet, cool, pine needles crackling underfoot. One evening we sat under the trees with a 6-pack between us, the fire low and steady. Crickets, wind, distant owl. Vaughn leaned back against a stump, beer in hand, face half lit by the fire. "You still dream about them?" he asked. I looked up through the pines. Number I used to. Ryan's voice. That smug calm when he said, "These should keep you warm." Dina's eyes the morning I left. But not anymore. He nodded once. Now I dream about what's next. We didn't say much after that. Didn't need to. The fire talked for us. The next morning I got up early and walked the ridge trail above the Institute. I took the sample kit with me. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted the weight. A reminder. The view stretched out across miles of green and rock. The air smelled like pine and dust. I stood there for 10 minutes without saying a word, just watching the sun hit the trees. When I got back, Vaughn was setting up another climbing wall. "Kid from Flagstaff's coming next week," he said. "Claims he's never been in real wilderness." "We'll fix that." He grinned. "We always do." Later that day, a man from the Bureau of Land Management stopped by. Clean cut, stiff shirt, folder in hand. He confirmed the claim had been restored under my name exclusively. Any overlapping filings from Ryan's camp were invalid. Case closed. Appreciate the update, I said. He shook my hand. Glad you made it out, Mr. Kingsley. Me too, I thought. When he left, I went inside and opened a box I hadn't touched since I came back. Inside was a single rock. Rough, gray, nothing flashy. A chunk I pulled from the blast site right before Ryan shoved me. It had no monetary value. Wasn't even lithium-bearing. But I'd labeled it anyway. Proof. I put it on the desk next to the Institute map, right where I could see it every time I sat down to plan a lesson or mark a trail. Not to dwell, just to remember. I didn't need revenge tours. Didn't need to torch their names across the internet. What I got was better. Truth, peace, and something solid under my feet. That night, we had 6 students arriving. Vaughn grilled chicken. I checked ropes. The camp buzzed with new energy, and for the first time in a long damn while, I felt grounded. Not safe. Real. Ryan took a plea deal. 14 years. No trial. No courtroom speeches. No cameras. Just paperwork, handcuffs, and a last-minute admission to avoid a longer sentence. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted manslaughter. He didn't contest the evidence, didn't name names, just signed the deal and disappeared into a state penitentiary outside Pueblo. He'd be almost 60 by the time he saw daylight again. Dina didn't show up to any of the hearings. No statements, no calls, no texts. She vanished the second the news broke, moved states, changed her number. Last I heard, she was working at a Ford dealership in southern Nevada, handling financing for people who didn't know her name. She dyed her hair blonde, got rid of the last name Kingsley, scrubbed her socials. She never apologized, never even called. Good. She didn't deserve a chance to explain. There's no sentence that makes betrayal make sense. No paragraph that undoes a shove into a cave and a forged death certificate. One court appearance. That's all I gave them. I stood in front of a judge in a packed hearing room and kept it short. No theatrics. No tears. He buried me, I said, but I climbed out. The room stayed silent after that. You could hear the bailiff shift in his chair. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a second. The judge sealed my discovery rights immediately after the hearing. Ownership locked tight under my name. Federal protections, institute confirmation, investor statements voided. Nobody would be able to touch that site again without my signature. And just like that, the buzz around the claim died off. The suits walked away. Energy groups stopped calling. Some of them claimed it was about uncertain partnerships. Others didn't say a word. But I knew the truth. They weren't scared of the rocks. They were scared of the man who crawled out of them. A month later, Vaughn and I packed up a couple backpacks and hiked back to the ridge where it all started. Same trail. Same air. The wind still whistled through the pines the way it had the day we left for the trip that nearly ended me. He didn't say much on the way up. Neither did I. At the top, just off the main overlook, we found a spot beneath a crooked cedar tree. Soil was soft, ground dry and quiet. Vaughn pulled a small plaque from his pack. Metal, hand-etched, rough around the edges. I knelt down and dug the hole, 4 inches deep, just enough to settle it into the earth. We pressed it flat, smoothed the dirt, and stepped back. No fanfare, no crowd, just the two of us, boots scuffed, clothes dirty, same as the day we crawled out of the mountain. I looked at the plaque and read the words aloud. To men who don't die easy, I said. Vaughn added without missing a beat. And the ones who never needed permission to come back. We stood there a while, arms crossed, eyes locked on that little patch of dirt like it was sacred. It was. Not because it marked anything dramatic, but because it was proof that we'd survived, that they'd failed. I used to think vengeance had to be loud, I said. Explosive. Headlines, courtrooms, screaming matches. And now? Now I know quiet vengeance is better. You live. They fade. He nodded. Ryan's name won't be on any monument. number, but mine will. We made our way back down as the sun dipped low. It hit the ridge just right, orange and gold cutting across the trees like fire. Vaughn took a deep breath and said, "Smells like Colorado again." It did. At camp, the students were sitting around the fire when we got back. One of the kids looked up and asked if we'd gone hiking. "Just clearing some old ghosts," Vaughn said. Later that night, I sat on the steps of my cabin, coffee in hand, staring at the tree line. I thought about every second inside that cave, every inch I crawled through, every time I wanted to stop and didn't. I didn't do it to prove anything to them. I did it to remind myself who I was. No man buries me, and if he tries, he better pray I don't dig my way out. I lived in a small cabin now, tucked just inside the forest line near the Institute. 2 rooms, wood stove, pine boards that creaked when the wind hit hard. Nothing fancy, just solid ground and silence. Vaughn lived 2 doors down in an identical setup. His idea, not mine. He said he wanted to stay close in case the earth decided to test us again. But I think he just liked the quiet the same way I did. We hiked on weekends, slow and steady, no altitude records to break. He carried the gear, I carried the maps. Some days we didn't say much, just walked and listened. Other times we talked for hours about pressure faults, weather patterns, and the weird way geology mirrors people, layers hiding things they thought were buried forever. I started teaching again. Safety briefings, field readiness, claim security, real stuff. No fluff. My classes weren't full, but they stayed honest. I told the kids stories that made their jaws drop and their pens freeze mid-note. "Whatever's in the ground doesn't care about your plans," I'd say. "It'll eat you just the same." They respected that. Not out of fear, but because they could tell I wasn't guessing. On my desk, just above the topography map of the site, sat one rock, fist-sized, uneven edges. It wasn't lithium, didn't sparkle, didn't do anything special, but it was the first thing I grabbed when the ceiling came down over my head. I kept it through the crawl, through the river, through everything. A label under it read one word: proof. People asked if I'd ever remarry. I told them the truth. I'm already home. Vaughn never pried. That was his skill. He listened more than he spoke. Didn't offer advice unless I asked. Just showed up with coffee, sat down beside me, and let the morning play out how it wanted. Sometimes we'd talk about the ground, the way shale buckles, the way frost fractures bedrock after a long winter. Other times, we said nothing at all, and that was just as good. Dina was gone. Name changed. Paper trail buried. Last I heard, she left Nevada, maybe trying to start over. I didn't care. Ryan was locked up. 14 years, no early release. His lawyer called once asking if I wanted to issue a statement for sentencing. I said no. The silence was already loud enough. The lithium vein was secured, documented, and sealed under federal protection until I decided what to do with it. I wasn't rushing that choice. Money didn't scare me anymore. I'd already lost everything once, survived it, came back stronger. The truth was on paper now, backed by science, certified by law. Nobody could take that from me again. But all of that, the claim, the name, the win, wasn't the real reward. What I gained, what mattered most, was this. I knew who I was again. I knew who they were. I had felt the mountain press in around me like a coffin, and I'd clawed my way back up through the rock, through the betrayal, through the silence. And in the end, I stood on my own 2 feet. Not as a victim, not as a survivor, as a man who knew better now, who could smell a lie 6 months ahead and see through a handshake before it landed, who understood that love doesn't stab you in the back and call it family. I took my coffee outside one morning and found Vaughn already on the porch next door. He raised his mug. I raised mine. Neither of us said a word. Some victories are loud, flashbulbs, headlines, cheers. But the best ones are quiet. Would you have forgiven Dina if she reached out? Let me know your answer in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.